Hi guys, welcome back to Nyx Reads. I hope you are well and safe and healthy, and I also hope that you've had a great reading year so far. I honestly had a great start to my book year. That's why I decided I want to do the quarter year crisis book tag, just to recap on a bunch of the books that I've been reading so far. Not only am I super happy with the quantity of books that I've read so far, because that's kind of a record for me. I really got a leg up for the rest of the year, even if I'm not going to be able to read as much as I am right now. But I'm also super happy and positively surprised about the quality of the books that I'm reading. So I've been reading a lot of 4-star books, for example, which is great. I think it's because I'm making a point to actually pick up the books that I'm excited about, that I think are going to be 5 stars. Because what I've done a lot in the past is I would read a lot of filler books because, let's say, I picked them up because they were on a super sale, or I picked them up just because they're convenient and maybe they're shorter. I don't really have great expectations for them, but I read them anyways, but that kind of drags my rating down. They usually end up being around 3 stars, and I don't enjoy them as much, or they're not as memorable. Whereas now that I'm picking up books that are, let's say, on my classics challenge or on my spring TBR, those were all basically 5-star predictions. I'm really having a good time. And my library and also my library audio app, so Libby, play a big part in that, because now I don't have to wait to have to spend the money in order to pick up a book that I think is going to be amazing, that I'm going to like a lot. Now I can just pick it up from the library or listen to it as a free audiobook, which doesn't mean that I don't buy books anymore, because I still do that a lot. Let's start with the questions. Number 1 is, how many books have you read so far? So I have read 28 books as of today, finished. For me, that is a huge number, because my end of the year reading goal is 40 books, which means I'm looking at my Storygraph app, by the way. I'm gonna link my account below if you want to follow me. I'm ahead by 16 books. That's just crazy. I already reached 70% of my reading goal. That kind of blows my mind. So we'll see if I can get to 100 books this year, but I'm really trying not to pressure myself too much in the sense of just picking up books so that I can fulfill stats. Have you already found a book you think might be a 2022 favorite? If not, what was your favorite book you read that wasn't quite a 5-star? So as I mentioned, I have read a lot of 4-star books, but for some reason I only gave one book a 5-star rating. Let me find it for you. If you follow my monthly reading wrap-ups, you've already seen Starfish by Lisa Phipps, which I'm surprised about because it's kind of out of my comfort zone. It's not what I usually read. It's A, middle grade, and B, a novel in verse, which was, I think, a first for me. Our amazing, lovely main character is Ellie, who is 11 years old, and she is a big girl, and she struggles a lot with her weight, but not so much with the weight itself, but more about the people around her. So for example, her mom, who's trying to make her skinny and trying to constantly put her on diets, and she struggles with bullies in school, and then her best friend moves away. And this book is about her finding her voice, her confidence, and standing up to the bullies in her life. It's honestly just so gorgeous. It is very hurtful at times, and honestly this is not an easy book to read, especially considering that it's middle grade. So I'm predicting that that book is going to make it on my favorite books of the year video end of this year. And then the second part of the question was, if not, what was your favorite book you read that wasn't quite 5 stars? I want to give an honorable mention to The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina. I just read this, but this was a 4.5 stars for me. It started out as a 4 stars, and the longer I thought about it, it's a 4.5. I think it's going to be one of my favorite books of the year as well. This was a lot of fun. If you love magical realism, then I think this is a great read. This story includes strong and complicated family bonds, a big mystery, magic, and just there's so many good things in here. I'm going to talk about this more in my wrap-up, so if you want to hear my thoughts on that, stay tuned and maybe subscribe to this channel. Any 1-star books or least favorite book of the year? Yeah, I talked about this in my last wrap-up. It's The Sanatorium by Sarah Pierce. I really don't recommend this book. Characters are kind of frustrating. The storyline is wasted potential. It's supposedly a great close circle mystery kind of thing, but it really didn't live up to its premise. And also McGlue by Ottessa Moshfegh was a 1-star for me. Just really couldn't connect to this book. I don't know, it was not my thing. I like the other Ottessa Moshfegh book that I read, and I'm 100% going to read more of this author because I think she's a brilliant writer. But this one, the story about the pirate who killed his friend and he's kind of trying to regain consciousness and trying to remember what happened, sounds interesting, but the execution was not for me. I barely understood what was happening in this book. Most read genre so far. For the mood, my most read mood is dark, which I'm not surprised about. Then it's reflective, and then mysterious. So my most read genre is mystery. Surprise, surprise, not really, with 7 books in mystery. Oh, classics? I did not expect to have read so many classics. This also includes The Handmaid's Tale, and it's also counting the Agatha Christie books that I read as classics. Oh, okay. Then thriller. Also, really not surprised. The Chestnut Man was a great thriller. The Last House on Needless Street, I would also put this in horror. Revelations that I didn't see coming at all. This was a wild ride. Sadie was also a great read. I loved Behind Her Eyes. I see that I only give it 3.5 stars, but now that I think about it, I almost want to give it a 4-star. Yeah, I tend to change my ratings as time passes because I just had so much fun with that book, and the Netflix show was also great. A book that surprised you? Well, probably Behind Her Eyes. Open Water by Caleb Azuma Nelson. It was my favorite book from last month's wrap-up. It's a very lyrical novella with very poetic writing, which is usually not what I go for. So I was very surprised by how much this book touched me. A book that's come out in 2022 already that you want to read but haven't yet. What comes to mind is Sundial by Catriona Ward, because I loved The Last House on Needless Street, which I just mentioned, and also a recent release, The Book of the Most Precious Substance by Sarah Gran. I saw this on quite a few people's most anticipated for 2022 that usually read thrillers and horror. One goal you made that you are succeeding at. So far, I'm happy with my advancement in my classics challenge for this year. And so far, I've been basically reading 1 classic per month. That's 100% gonna slow down throughout the rest of the year because there's some pretty big books in that list, which I'm probably gonna take more than a month for to read. I think I'm on track. One goal you made, you need to focus on. I need to focus on reading more Brandon Sanderson. So I have Mistborn, the first era, sitting here in my books, and I haven't touched it yet. I think that's one of the next books I'm going to pick up because I really want to get into the Cosmere. I have not jumped on that Kickstarter thing by Brandon Sanderson because honestly I wasn't sure if it's going to be a good fit for me. I've only just finished Elantris. Yeah, I'm not sure. Can you even still sign up for the Kickstarter? Because I thought it ended in February. And I'm not so sure if I'm going to manage to read all of my books on my spring TBR before spring ends. I only had 10 books on there, I think, but I technically only had 2 months left to read those. And because I'm also reading other books, I'm not sure if I'm going to get to all 10. The last question is, new to you booktubers, bookstagrammers, booktokers for 2022 you recommend? I don't really follow bookstagrammers or booktokers, but I certainly watch a lot of booktube because there's quite a few book channels that I've been watching for years, but that was not the question. So I discovered Grace from GK Reads. I really like the variety of books that she talks about. A lot of the books that she talks about I've never heard of before. She has a lot of great nonfiction book recommendations. I religiously watch Camila from Hasty Books. She talks about so many books that I've never heard of before. She brings a lot of book prices to my attention that, again, I haven't really seen around, so I discovered new authors through her. And she's originally from Quebec, so that's cool. Kind of something that we have in common. Well, I'm not from Quebec, but I am now in Quebec. Ooh, and I've been loving Mara from Books Like Whoa. I discovered her through our mutual love for Agatha Christie. The way she talks about plots and also current events, be it in the real world or in the booktube world, is so eloquent and sophisticated. It's really such a joy to watch her, and she gives a lot of guides on how to read yourself through classics and modern classics. Also love watching Jillian from Novel Options. She is a great source for TBR suggestions for middle grade because she reads a lot of books with her kids and with her family together. Her videos are usually on the shorter side, so they're like nice bite-sized pieces on bookish content, which is great. And she has a very interesting job. I think she's a sculptor. So Jillian, if you're watching this, I think a vlog on how you sculpt something would be really interesting. Also really like to hear Jessica's opinions on books from Lady Lovestead Reads. We seem to have a lot of crossovers in books that we read, especially like in the fantasy and literary genre. So that's pretty nice. I also want to mention Kat from Biblio Obscura. Also just found her this year, I believe, and she's my go-to for weird books that have just very odd and scary plot lines. She has great recommendations for horror books. Those were the booktubers that I discovered this year so far. So who do I tag? I believe most people have already filmed and uploaded this tag. Lindy and Books, if you're watching this, then I'm tagging you. I would love to see this from you. And also Jessica from Lady Lovestead Reads. If you guys are watching this, consider yourself tagged. But anybody else, let me know if you're watching. Comment on this video and you are automatically tagged. Let me know what you think of this wrap up. Please feel free to subscribe if you love bookish content, and leave this video a like if you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.